My friend, it's geschmack to hear Noach Lerman.
Okay. All right, so we're going to start off on Daf Vav and Aleph in the second to bottom line where it says Bishlam Ravia Rishona Lishal Shlishis Lizanos Shniel Amai. So right, when we're talking about rain, the first time it rains, we have dates, right? We have a date. We have different dates in the calendar that the first time it's supposed to rain, the second time it's supposed to rain, and the third time it's supposed to rain. And so if it doesn't rain by the first time, by the Ravia Rishona, then that's when we start asking. That's when we start asking for the rain. If it doesn't rain by the Ravia Shlishis, meaning it doesn't rain by the third time it's supposed to rain, then that's when we start fasting and hoping that it's going to rain. Okay, so we have the first and the third. So why do we need to know the date of the second one? It seems like there's nothing that we're really learning out of the Ravia Shnia. Why do we need to know about it? So Amar Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera says, "L'nedarim." So the Ravia Shnia we use for vows. If you make a vow, it says in the Mishnah, "Hanoder ad hageshamim mishiyardu geshamim." If you make a neder, you make an oath. For example, you say, "I'm not going to benefit from a certain type of object until it starts raining." Then when you say that, it means until the second time it rains. And that's based on two different ideas. One is that that's what people normally say. Normally, when you would say until it rains, you mean until the second time it rains, because that's like the real rain. And the other idea of why this would be is another idea of it's Rashi, in that when you say Geshamim, if you literally said the words Geshamim, that's plural. And the first thing that comes to mind when we do plural, whenever we're talking to the Gemara about plural, that's always two. So you would say the second rain would be the rain in which you would have to your neder would be over. Rav Zvid offers another answer for why the Ravia Shnia is important. He says it's for olives. This non we have in Mishnah. So when are everyday people allowed to take leket, which are the stalks that are left on the floor when you're collecting them? Shechcha, the stalks that are left behind, or the peah, the corners of the field, they're not allowed to cut. You have to leave the poor people. Normally, these are for the poor people. When is the everyday person allowed to go and take it? And so we say Mishiyelko anamushos, when the rummagers go, according to the arts, the rummagers. So it comes from the word of mashash, which means like to feel around. The people that are really like searching pretty well. After they go through the field, then the everyday person can go and collect the leket shifan peah. So for the grapes that are left behind, or the deformed grapes, when the poor people go in, go out, and go back in, and they do like a double check, past that point, it's gonna be allowed for everybody to get, because you're gonna have basically a yeyosh at that point that they're not gonna find anymore. And then for zaysim, for olives, when are you allowed to take the shichcha and the peah for olives? Mishateru to be a shnia from the second time it rains. So the second time it rains, now all of a sudden, everyday people are allowed to take the leftovers of the olive produce. And this is because after it rains, that's the specific time when you would say poor people are no longer going to be going to the olives. They've already checked it. So it must be that the everyday person can have it now. So my nemushos, the Gemara is going to ask, what are nemushos? Rabbi Yochanan, it says it's old people that use canes to walk, and since they're using canes, they use them a little bit to feel around. They move slowly through the field, and so after they go through it, we assume that everything's been seen. Rish Lakish says something else. So it's the when, let's say I was going with my son, I go and check through the field first, and then my son goes after me, and anything I didn't pick up, he picks up, and that way we make sure we get everything. After those people go through, then the everyday person is allowed to go and collect. Rav Papa says, the idea of Shvilei Rishos are shortcuts that go through somebody else's field. When Yeshua was allotting the land, he basically allowed people to go through shortcuts through other people's fields. However, after the second time it rains, people can go through these shortcuts until the second time it rains. After the second time it rains, it's going to be damaging to the crops if somebody walks through your field. And so therefore, the Shvilei Rishos, the shortcuts that go through people's fields, are canceled by the second rain. Okay? Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, "Levar peros shvius." So in order to destroy the fruits from shvius, that's not what we have in Mishnah. So until when can we benefit and burn the straw and the other type of straw of shvius? So that's going to be until the second rain comes, and that one's a little bit more interesting because there's not a clear reason as to why when the second rain comes we're going to have to burn our peros from shvius. There's not like that direct link that we saw by all the other ones. And so the Gemara picks up on that and says, my time, well, what's the reason over here? And it bases on a pasuk. This says in the pasuk, and for the domesticated animal and the wild animal that are in your land. So anytime that the wild animal is eating, you can feed your domesticated animal in your house. So when the wild animal stops eating in the field, then you're going to have to stop feeding to your domesticated animal. And this means basically since the second rain is going to come and it's going to, all the straw that's in the field is going to turn into mud. It's going to get all gathered together with the dirt and the rain. And then the chaya, the wild animal, is no longer going to be eating the mixture of mud and straw. So at that point, you have to destroy all your straw because you can no longer feed it to your domesticated animal since the wild animal is no longer eating in the field. Okay, and that's the end of that sugya of the Revi'ah Shniya. So now we move into our next part. Amar Rabbi Avo says, my lashon Revi'ah. What's this language of Revi'ah? Just say Geshem. Like, why are we using the word Revi'ah? What does that mean about rain? Davar sheroveya es hakarka. It's something that penetrates the land and it has a connection to the relationship between a man and a woman. Kid Rabbi Yehuda, like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, mitra bala da'arahu. Rain is the husband of land. Shemamar says in the pasuk, ki kasher yered hageshem b'shalim v'neshamayim v'shamal lo yashuv. When the rain and snow goes down from the heavens and it's not going to return there, it's rather going to saturate the land, and the land is going to give birth. It's going to make the land give birth and make it sprout. And so from the language of holida, make it give birth, we see that same relationship of man to woman. The man makes the wife give birth, so too the rain makes the land give birth to produce. Also said, so when the first Revi'ah comes, in order to count that as the first Revi'ah, the minimum amount of rain is that it needs to go down into the land at least a tefah. The second rain is that it needs to change the ground into a material that you'd be able to seal up the top of a barrel with. And now we get into different sugya. So when the rain comes down and it makes it able to use the dirt, the mud that's going to be created in order to seal off a barrel, that doesn't have the concept of the atzar. The atzar is something that we say every day. It's basically the klal that we have in Shema. The atzar Shemayim, the atzar Shemayim, exactly. So it's the klal that we have in Shema. Thank you. And what are the ramifications of this klala? So if you look on Chesed Aleph, the Gemara talks about the klala and says the Atzar Shemayim. If you look 3 lines from the bottom, Amar Reish Lakish, my Ditzei Atzar Shemayim. What does it mean? And the heavens will stop. It's the time when the heavens are stopping to give talim matar, dew and rain. Again, we have a reference to the relationship between the rain and the earth as the relationship of basically a woman giving birth. It's similar. And what it says is that it's like a woman in labor who's not giving birth. And that would be the atzar, is you would see the clouds above, but the clouds wouldn't be giving rain. And that would be a fulfillment of the klala, the curse of the atzar. And the heavens are not going to, and Hashem's not going to give rain. So now getting back into what we're talking about. So let's say the rain goes down and it's only enough that you can seal up the barrel, but it's not really enough rain to really call it like such a good rain. Would you call that ba'atzar? Is that a little enough rain to call it ba'atzar? And actually it's not. It's enough rain to say that it's not a klala, it's not a curse. Okay? The Amar of Krista also says, if it falls down before you say ba'atzar, meaning before you say Shema, then it doesn't fall under the klala of ba'atzar, even if it's only a little bit of rain. Amar Abai adds to that, Lo Amran Elakodim Ba'atzar de Orsa. That's only talking about Ba'atzar of the evening, right? The nighttime Kriyat Shema. So that's excluding the daytime Kriyat Shema, right? That would be Elakodim Ba'atzar de Saper Yishbin Moshe Ba'atzar. But if it comes before you said Shema in the morning, meaning it came before Kriyat Shema in the morning, then that actually would be fulfillment of the curse. Okay? Damar Yehuda Bar Yitzchak, as Rabbi Yehuda said, Hani Anani Ditzah for Leis Mashasha. These clouds in the morning, they don't have anything there. There's nothing there. Dixiv, as it says in the pasuk, Ma'aselacha Ephraim, Ma'aselacha Yehuda, B'chastechem, Kalan Boker Gomer. What am I going to do for you, Ephraim? What am I going to do for Yehuda? Your righteousness is like the morning cloud, aka non-existent. But this is interesting because we just said on Chesed Aleph that the Ve'atzar, the klala of Ve'atzar, is going to come when it's like it looks like it's gonna rain, but then it doesn't rain. So how can we say that the fulfillment of Ve'atzar is when in the morning when the clouds don't really have anything? And so I think that I tried looking around, I didn't see anything in here, but I think that a possible answer that you could say is that in the morning, even though there's clouds, you're still gonna have difficulty getting rain, and we're gonna see about that more a little bit further. Amalei Rav Papa Abaye. The Papa says to Abaye, "V'ha'amri in shape." But don't the people say, when the gates open, Mitra, and there's rain, Bar Chamra Moch Sakech Bignei. So donkey rider, fold your sack and go to sleep. Basically, you donkey rider aren't going to have any work to do today because it's going to be raining all day, and that's when there's clouds in the morning. And then the answer to that is lokash. That's not difficult. This is when it's filled with thick clouds. This is when it's thin clouds. And I think that'll help us answer our previous question of how could this be a fulfillment of the atzar if it doesn't look like it's going to rain. And the answer is that really there's two types of clouds they have in the morning. There's the clouds that are thick, and those ones are definitely going to rain. Right? Those are definitely going to be pouring all day. But we've seen that before. There's tons of clouds up in the air, and then it starts pouring. It's pouring all day. The other type is when it's thinner clouds, and it still could possibly rain, but it's not to the point where we're definitely sure it's going to rain. And in that case, that could be fulfillment of the atzar. If you see those clouds in the morning and it doesn't rain, that would be a fulfillment of the atzar. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. So now we're going to get into our next idea. Rabbi Yehuda says, Tava l'shasa de teves amelasa. It's good for the year when teves is a widow. And once again, going back to our relationship between the rain and the earth as the man and his wife. So amelasa, like a widow, that would be that same relationship. So it's good for a year when teves is a widow, meaning it doesn't rain. So some say it's because there's two different ways of translating this. One is that the places of learning, the bate midrashim, are not going to be empty. Tarbitzi are like to spread Torah, so it's not going to be empty in places of spreading Torah. And the other idea is that it's not going to ruin your garden. Tarbitzi could be like Taanis, which is like a garden of a palace. So it's not going to ruin your garden because it's not going to rain too much, right? Tomatoes and grapes, if it rains too much, then they go bad. They don't do well with too much water. And there are those who say that it's because the blight is not going to take hold. The blight is something that still exists nowadays. Is the winter winds when it runs into the stalks of grain. If the stalks of grain are wet and the winds are really cold and hit into them, it basically causes the grain to die, and it's not going to last until the spring. So if it doesn't rain in Teves, and then when the winter winds hit it, it's not going to be wet, then it's not going to catch blight, and they're not going to die. So Aini is this so? But dinner of Krista say, it's good for a year when Teves is disgusting, meaning it's full of rain, and the paths are totally dirty. Low kasha, it's not difficult. How the asa mitra meikara? This is where rain came first, and now if it's going to rain again, it's going to be bad for us. How the low asa mitra meikara? But if it never rained yet, and now this is the first rain, then it's good that it's raining now, then better than rain now than rain never. But Amar Rav Chisda, and Rav Chisda said, Ein behem mishum v'atzar. So if rain falls on part of a city or country and doesn't fall in the other part, so that's not a fulfillment of the punishment of the atzar. And is that so? And I've withheld from you the rain. 3 months before the harvest. And I will make it rain on one city, and on the other city I won't make it rain. One portion is going to be rained on. And Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Rav Shtei Klala. Both of them are for a curse. And if you said it wasn't a fulfillment of the Atzar, which is a Klala, then how is Rabbi Yehuda saying the name of Rav that both of these cities are really cursed? And so the answer is lokash. It's not difficulty. There's ha de asa tuva, ha de asa. So when it rains too much on one part, it doesn't rain at all on the other part, then that's obviously a curse on the entire thing, right? They're not getting the rain that they want, and Hashem is actually preventing them from getting produce on both lands. But when it rains just enough that they're able to provide water or produce for both cities, one that's being rained on, the other one that's not being rained on, then that's actually not a curse, and that's totally fine. Okay. Amar Rav Ashi says, you could also be medayik. You can examine closely in the pasuk that says timater. It says it repeats the fact that one part of it is going to be rained on. It says timater. Tehei mako matar. It's going to be a place of rain, meaning it's going to rain a lot, and that is a klala because it's going to be totally filled with rain. Shvamina, that's really like that. So now we get into our final. So Amar Rabbi Yavahu says, when do we make the bracha on the geshamim? So mishiyatza chasam likaskala. So from when the groom goes to meet the bride, there's two ideas of this. One is that when the rain falls into puddles that have already been formed and the drops kind of splash back up and the rain falls, that's the chasam likaskala. And the other idea is when you have some much rain that it's running down the streets on the sides of the streets. We've all seen it in Canada when it rains a ton, or anywhere else in the area. And they're going towards the gutters, and then you have two streams that run into each other. And that would be the same. That would be also chasam likaskala. So my mevared. What do you make the bracha? What do you make the bracha on? What is the bracha? Sorry. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Rav. So we thank Hashem, our God, for every drop that He brings down to us. Rabbi Yochanan Messiah Bahaki. Rabbi Yochanan finished the bracha like this: Ilu finu malay shirk yam b'sheninu rina kamam dalav b'chalei ad al yazvinu rachmach Hashem alkeinu v'lo yazvinu b'roch v'rov ha'odos. So he starts with the Ilu finu malay shirk hayam, and we know where we say that. Yeah, we'll say on Shabbos in Mishmas. Okay. Until Al Yazvinu Rachmach Hashem Alkeinu V'lo Yazvinu Baruch Rov Ha'odos. So Rov Ha'odos V'lo Kol Ha'odos. How could you possibly call Hashem the Rov Ha'odos, most of the praise V'lo Kol Ha'odos, and not all of the praise? So Amar Rava says Ema Kel Ha'odos. Say that He's the God of the praise, and that way you're kind of saying that He's all the praise. So Amar Rav Papa says Hilkat Nemraya L'Tribayu. Therefore, we're going to say both of them. Kelodos v'Rav Ha'odos. When you say the bracha, we're going to say Kelodos v'Rav Ha'odos. So my question to all of you is: when was the last time you said this bracha? Most of us probably never. And so I looked it up because I was interested in this bracha and like what is it nowadays. And so I saw a bunch of different sources. So the Rambam says that he just simply states that we make the bracha on the first rain of the year. And he also diversifies a little bit. If you're the one that owns the field, make shechianu. If you partially own the field, make it tovametiv. And if you don't own the field but you benefit from the rain, then you would make this bracha. The Shulchan Aruch says the same, but he says only if the rain had stopped and now it's restarted, and you had sahar, you were distressed a little bit since the rain had stopped. And the Ramah comments on the Shulchan Aruch and takes it to the extreme and says we don't say it nowadays because rain is normal by us. We normally have rain even in the winter. He didn't live in Israel; he lived in Europe, and therefore it was normally raining. So therefore we wouldn't say the bracha because it wouldn't make us sameach enough. It wouldn't make us happy enough. But the Mishnah Berurah comments on that and says that if the rain stops, even in Chutz La'aretz, we would make the bracha because we would be sufficiently happy when the rain starts again. So say if there was a drought in America and then it starts raining, then we would make the bracha. And he also is medayik in the Shulchan Aruch that even in Eretz Yisrael, a place where we're happier, we should really make the bracha every single year, even if it doesn't stop. However, he acknowledges the Shulchan Aruch's opinion and says we should say without Hashem's name. And so that's where I'm going to end it. And I think that a message that we can take from this bracha is that
Just remember to thank Hashem for every single drop. Full Tipa V'Tipa Shara Kolana. Thank Hashem for every drop of everything He gives us.